Namaste and a happy new year to you all. I hope you've had a peaceful and revealing break over the Christmas period. And I'm here today to do the December Ask Me Anything answers. And it's a little late, obviously, with we're into January now with the Christmas break, but we've got plenty to answer here to talk about. So just before we get started, if you have anything that you'd like to ask me, we're running this new, well, relatively new section called Ask Helen Anything, where I'll post this video on YouTube. And then if you have questions for January, you can just put them underneath this video in a comment. And then at the end of every month, I will take some time to answer the questions that have come up. And it's turning out to be a fun thing to do and hopefully popular as well. So we'll get started with December's questions. So Monica says, thank you. Thank you very much, Monica. Ethereal Dawn, thank you so much, Helen. Thank you too. A smiley face from Matt, thank you. Celtic Gaia Tarot and Spiritual Wisdom says, thank you. And thank you for my scholarship to Dissolving the Ego course. I loved it, life-changing. Thank you. And we are, the March course is now open for booking, and we are offering scholarships for that too. So if that's something that you want to apply for, I'd urge you to do it as soon as possible. Lovely. Marcella says, thank you. Thank you very much. Beth Higgins says, thank you so much for this satsang. I have a question about reincarnation and hearing different answers to that question. Some say there is no reincarnation and others that there is. How are both answers true? Well, it's one of those questions that I get asked very, very often. And one of the things that really confused me going through this journey myself. So reincarnation is untrue in the sense that I, the separate being, are born again and again and again into different lifetimes. In that sense, me as a separate being being reincarnated is untrue. It's not how it is, because, as you know, I'm sure, even theoretically, that we're not actually separate to anything. So what is the reincarnation process, and what is it that remembers from lifetime to lifetime where I left off last lifetime? And it helped for me to think of it as, I've been able to see energy from, for as far as back as I can remember. I had a head start in this, really, that everybody isn't actually just their body. And we know that kind of, there is the infinite consciousness, the noumenon. But what we call our body isn't just physical. What makes us individual isn't just physical. It is, there are many subtle bodies on many subtle levels. Manifestation isn't just, okay, I am this body and I'm also the infinite consciousness, which is unmanifest. I'm not just this manifest body and the great unmanifest. There are layers and levels of, it's a gradual process in between. So we could say our mind is a kind of mental body. Our emotions are a kind of emotional body. And then we have the physical body. But before that and in between that and the subtle bodies that we have energetically are the things that remember the journey that we've been through each time a body has appeared inside us. So consciousness doesn't need a body to survive. The noumenon just is. But it does need a body to give it contrast, so it can have experience and a relative sense of time and space, so that it can begin to recognize what beliefs it's holding on to. So there's a kind of a higher subtle body, higher only in vibration, which is, you could call it the causal body. It's called many different names by different people, but really it's a stored collection of our memories from different bodies. So reincarnation, and all the desires that we have that are unfulfilled, desire to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel accepted, all of that. So reincarnation is not really a separate being reincarnated. It is the infinite consciousness appearing as an individual being, but not separate, like a wave on the ocean. And then the outermost tip, the crest of that wave is the physical body. So reincarnation is a succession of bodies, physical bodies coming and going for that individual, but not separate being. And you could think of the wave as being continuous. Normally on an ocean, the waves rise and recede. But what if there was the ocean and a wave that never dissipated? And the most densest, slowest, visible, perceptible part of that individuality is the human body. And that is the way that we're able to interact with each other. But it's not, it's only the outermost layer. So you could say it's like a glove on your hand. The glove comes off, it's worn out, you put a new glove on, different color, different shape, looks different, same hand inside. What makes you you is before the body, and what makes you individual is before the body. So reincarnation as a separate being is not so. Because if it was, all this work to realize what we are in this lifetime would be forgotten and disappeared and vanished when the body went. If that's all we were, we'd have to do it all over again next lifetime. And I don't know about you, but I don't really want to go through that again, having done all this to break free. So I hope that helps, but please do ask again if you need to. Vivian says, Helen is the most generous, most accessible teacher I have ever had the great luck to come across. She's also a most incredible teacher, full of wonderfully helpful stories, pointings, and genuine love and kindness. Forever grateful. Thank you, Vivian. I really appreciate that. It's what gives my life meaning to help shortcut this process for other beings. So thank you for that. Thomas Kraft says, love you, Helen. Thomas Norway, love you too. Noshi says, awakening is about authenticity first and foremost, and the peace and compassion follow naturally. Absolutely, absolutely. How can I ever feel peace if I am not being myself in this moment? And not being myself as in the spiritual idea I have for myself, being only the unmanifest, but being whatever I am in this moment. That's authenticity. So if I'm fearful, there's fear. If I am upset, and then, I'm feeling that way. If I'm confused, I'm confused. If I'm peaceful, I'm peaceful. If I'm fearful and confused and peaceful all at the same time, I'll be that as much as I can. I won't reject any part of my experience, and I'll be as authentic as I can be in this moment. And that authenticity is what brings peace, as you said, because it's really, I'm not fighting against myself for the first time ever, maybe. And really that is the awakened state, and that I am being authentic in every moment, whatever that looks like. I have no idea from one moment to the next. It looks like this right now. It looks like this cold that I'm getting over. And compassion, when my body's ill, when my mind's doing its thing, whatever is going on is what's going on. I'm not going to try to push against that. Yes, I would also like it to be different, and I could authentically honor that desire too. Compassion then flows too, as you've said, because we begin to understand that the only thing that's wrong with anyone ever, that we're suffering from ever, is a lack of authenticity. Inauthenticity, being what I think I should be, who I think I should be, who I ought to be, who I think other people need me to be, who I think being the being that I think will be safer or more accepted and loved. And really, when we just be ourselves, those things that we're trying to get rid of anyway tend to disappear, and we find that we are quite likable anyway. Okay, Melissa says, thank you so much, Helen. I love this Q&A. I have a question about the soul. Is there a soul per se, or is it accurate to say it's how humans define the self, capital S, expressing itself through each individual body, mind. Much love. Well, I'm not going to spend too long on this one because I kind of answered it in Beth's question about reincarnation. But for me, the soul, I would say, is the causal body. We were talking about the subtle energy bodies in between the infinite consciousness. And of course, in between suggests that they're different. But when you want to manifest something, make it visible, out of the infinite, intangible awareness that you are, the first thing you might sculpt is some subtle energy forms, and those stay there forever, and they're changing and evolving throughout the succession of different bodies. So what you've realized in this lifetime will be remembered. And to me, that's what the soul is. And again, it's just a word, it's just my definition, and everyone can have a different definition, of course, but what makes us individual and unique is not just the body. The body is the outermost tip of that, the thing that's coming and going. You know, if you tried on a different outfit of clothes, it would make you look different than the previous outfit you were wearing before. Tried on a different body mind vehicle, it make you look different to how you did before. Think differently, speak differently, eat differently, all of it. But the root of that individuality is before and beyond the body. And that to me is what the soul is. So I hope that helps. Doris says, thank you so much, dear Helen. Thank you, Doris. Lots of love. Una, all right, Riley. Thank you so much, Helen, for these videos. You've helped me reach a new level of awareness. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Colleen Kelly says, love you, Helen. Love you too. And I hope you're doing better about your dog passing. Bjorn, thank you, Helen. I always enjoy your talks. Sometimes it feels really personal, like you're speaking directly at my inner core. Namaste. Well, I am. I'm speaking directly to the inner core of everyone because it is the same inner core. So what you feel you're dealing with that's personal to you, your own individual and unique struggles in awakening, in life in general, what you feel you're suffering from will be the same as everyone else. And that's how a teacher can be effective. I don't necessarily need to know how your karmic patterns are playing out in your life. It could be in a relationship, in your finances, in your career. But I know what that basic struggle is because, and the basic things we get confused about in awakening, because it was the same for me, is the same for me. And as such, we are all going through the very same thing. It used to amaze me how I'd listen to other teachers and I'd be like, how do they know what's going on in my life when this satsang was recorded 10 years before I was watching it? And then I realized because it's all the same essential core of the one being showing up as these various different individual beings, each of the individual expressions taking on a human form for a short while, but dealing with the same basic issues of an urge to feel safe, urge to feel loved, an urge to stop suffering, feel peace and free. Lovely. Maria says, thanks so much, Helen, for replying to these queries and speaking up for yourself. It inspires me to be comfortable to set boundaries and advocate for myself kindly too. Every answer was relevant and so helpful. I appreciate your generosity in sharing and learning in your learning journey and wisdom. I have a slight dyslexia, so it's not your typing, it's my reading. I've been blessed to listen to you for about a year and hopefully can be present with you in person one day. I'm curious what you might say around the part of me that's concerned about spiritual bypassing. I think of the ego as our wounded child parts and protective parts that need nurturing, understanding, and welcoming. Again, your calm presence and advice have been so inspiring. Thank you so much. Well, I hope we get to meet too one day physically, although we have already met on one deep and profound level. Yeah, and standing up for yourself, you know, self-love, that was the thing that I didn't get for a long time. Being that love also means standing up for this body-mind vehicle in a lovingly, firm, assertive way. Not saying that I will honor everyone else's needs except this one here, you know, also what's right for me here. And that is really the expression of love, isn't it? But as to your question about spiritual bypassing, the part of me that's concerned about spiritual bypassing, yeah, ego is our wounded child and protective parts. It definitely needs understanding, nurturing, and welcoming, as you said here. And what ego wants to bypass, doesn't want to look at. You could say that ego has this, it's like a filing cabinet in the mind. And in one of the drawers of the filing cabinet, the folders is labeled, do not look at this stuff ever. Do not ever open this up because it's going to be too painful. And we all have other drawers and folders that we've already worked through and come to a resolution. But there's one part where this is just too deeply painful for me to look at the idea that I might not be good enough inherently or something like that. Because if I look at that, I might find out if it's true, ego says. So it stamps it with a big do not ever examine. And that really to me is bypassing. Assuming our ideas to be true, there are certain things that we can't look at or don't need to look at. The two types of bypassing for me that I experienced. The first one was what I've just described, stuff that I couldn't look at as an egoic sense of self because it was just too painful, too wounded, and needed, there was this protective mechanism, do not ever go there. That corner of my consciousness is off limits to contemplation and self-inquiry and all of that. And then there was the arrogance that came for me of, I don't need to look any further. I know what I am. I know what awakening is. I know what the self is. I'm there now. And I don't think you're referring to that from what you've said in your comment, but just in case. Life slapped me around a bit until I realized that awakening was ongoing and constant and that there was no final arrival point. There was a point where I was no longer suffering. That's not the same as constantly unfolding deeper, this flowering of awakening in the mind and body and the individuality, as we've been saying. So being the self, recognizing what you are, that love, at first it comes as wisdom, understanding, and then it begins to deepen as love and compassion for the self. And in that, you'll find it impossible to bypass anything. Love wants to come back for everything, every wounded part, every fragment that we've kind of shoved over there that we couldn't deal with at the time, every bit of psychic pain, everything. It wants to come back and redeem that to make it whole. Redeem has this an overtone, or it did for me at least, of to make something better than it was. But when I really looked at what the root meaning of that word, it was kind of to restore it to its original setting. And so love wants to not go through and heal all the things that need fixing about you. Love will want to heal all the misconceptions about yourself and others, restore it to the original factory setting of there never was anything wrong with me, ever. So in a way, bypassing has to occur until we really have shifted our identity or seen, to a certain extent at least, what we actually are. Because only then can we have the love and the compassion and the courage and the wisdom to see it is not at all like I thought it was. I am not at all like I thought I was. There has never been anything wrong with me or you or any of us in that. And here's the compassion we were talking about, and Noshi was speaking about, that I can look at anything inside myself that I haven't wanted to look at before, from the absolute knowing that it's not true. There never was anything flawed about me. Least of all, this original separation thing that we think of. So as identity shifts, that nurturing, that welcoming, that healing, that understanding is going to begin to happen naturally. And you can feel that already. It prompts this kind of comment. If we're worried about spiritual bypassing, I can guarantee you won't be doing it. The times when I was spiritually bypassing things, avoiding the stuff arrogantly that I thought I didn't need to look at anymore or do anymore, it didn't even come into my mind, my awareness that I might be actually avoiding something. It was only when life got so painful that I had to reassess, and life kept slapping me again and again. Look, you're not as awakened as you think you are here. There's some more things to see. So if you're asking that kind of question, you won't be bypassing. So I hope that helps to kind of give you a little piece there. Pero says, thank you for taking your time to give me a very long answer. Once I was also very, very shy. I've had also dreams like you, not anymore. They might come back. But if they do, they'll be seen from a whole different level. You're a very brave woman. All the best and greetings from Austria, Innsbruck, where I live and work. I'm from Croatia, Dubrovnik, and I love to make movies. And somehow I stumbled upon you and some other self-realized men and women. Pure magic from God. All the best. Thank you very, very much. We were talking in the previous months. I was saying that I still am quite shy, actually. And that's what prompted this answer from Pero. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. And just glad to be of service. Nadia says, hope I pronounced that right. Hi, Helen. My question is about the real self. When I try to answer the question experientially about where it is and where does it end, then I say, it ends where my perception ends. It is not unlimited. How did you come to the conclusion that it is unlimited? Thank you and best regards, Nadia. Okay, so do you end where your perception ends? Are you and your perception the same thing? That's something that really needs examining there, because if I am my perception, then I'm going to be limited. I'm going to feel limited. I'm going to imagine myself to be a limited being. And also, what is my perception? If I'm talking about my perception only as what my senses are perceiving, then I am very much limited to what my senses can perceive. So you say that it ends where my perception ends. Well, don't be so sure of that. Question that. And where is your real self? When I try to answer the question experientially, which is the most important thing, I would sit with this question if I was you, and I did for a long time. Where actually are you? And if your body is not permanent, which of course it isn't, do you really know where you are? Because you can't really say whether you're limited to your perception until you know what you are. The very words my perception has skipped right past this my and onto the perception. What is the me that says my? What is this I that says my perception? Are you limited to your perception? Well, doesn't that depend on what you actually are? And trying to find that experientially here. Where are you? You know where your body is. All right, my body's sitting in this chair. I know where my thoughts are, emotions. There's a sense of experiencing, but where am I, the one that all this is happening to? Can I say with certainty that I know where I am and where I aren't? Or is it just a massive assumption that I am where this body is only? I am where my perception is only. So just cultivating a curiosity to really see and to answer the question honestly, do I know where I am? Can I find myself as a someone, a something? Am I a something living in this body? A someone, an object? Can I actually find that when I really look? Have a look at that, spend some time with that. And then if you want to write back in, we'll take it the next step further. Because you do not end where your perception ends. And in fact, your perception is infinite. That might sound confusing. We're not talking about perception through the senses, but to keep it really simple, and how did you come to the conclusion that it's unlimited? I sat with this question: where am I? What am I? Do I really know where I am? Can I point to my body and say, that's where I am? I'm also here animating and talking through this body. But is that the only place I am? Am I limited? See where you get to with that one. And then we'll go from there. Darcy says, hi, Helen. I have a question for December, if you can fit it in to your program. I can't think of anyone else that may know the answer to this. Here goes. I understand samadhi and the complete absorption into the oneness, where there is no longer duality or small self. This is our true identity. My confusion is about near-death or after-death experiences that are all over YouTube. Everyone that is reporting these experiences talk about retaining their sense of self, recognizing others, etc. What is the truth here? During these experiences, they are obviously out of their bodies, but still in a form identity. Are there different levels of awareness or experience outside of physical form? Or are these reported experiences just another ego trip? These people supposedly feel peace, unconditional love, and absorb with the light, but somehow retain their individuality. How is that possible? Would love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you. Well, let me start by saying I've never had a near-death, well, kind of a near-death experience, but maybe I'll talk about it later, but it's not really all that interesting for the context of this. So I'm only going on what I think I know about, what I've read about, heard about other people's near-death experiences. And for me, all I can say about that is that I agree with you that there seems to be still some kind of form identity there. There's a me that has left the body temporarily or permanently. And of course, in a near-death experience, that is temporary, it comes back into the body. So the very leaving the body and coming back must indicate some kind of object, some kind of something. So can you leave the body as the infinite self? Not so much. The body's appearing in you. The body is the infinite self, condensed down to look like a body. But as we were talking about earlier at the beginning, I think the first question from Beth or Melissa's question, there is this subtle energy body that retains all of our memories, a causal body, whatever you want to call it, karmic body. And that is individual and a subtle form. It's not a tangible, gross physical form like the actual physical body, but it is nonetheless a form identity, and not separate, but individual and a something. It is a something, a very subtle something. But in that subtle somethingness, it can feel like it's in the body, and then it will feel like it's leaving the body, and then coming back into the body. So that same subtle somethingness will still remain when the body falls off eventually. And some people, when they're free of the physical body, they experience for the very first time the fact that they're not this body. They remember that. As soon as you look at your body lying there and go, oh, that's not me, I don't end when it ends. That's got to bring with it some love, some peace, some joy, hasn't it? Because a lot of the things we're worried about is an ending. Well, everything that we're worried about is the ending of ourself. When that becomes clearer to us that when my body's there and I'm here still aware, still recognizing, then in that moment, a lot of the fear and everything vanished. So we can have that kind of experience, but without recognizing the ultimate root of what we really are, which is the infinite self. And people will report, from what I've read and heard, massive changes in their life, much more peace and compassion and joy and all of that after having one of these experiences. Certainly, I came very close to death at one point in my adolescence, and changed my whole perspective. I wouldn't say that I had an experience of leaving my body, just a moment where time seemed to freeze. And it was very clear that it was either going to carry on the body or it wasn't, and it looked like it wasn't. So I hope that helps to kind of explain. Absolutely, I think you're onto the right idea here, that it's still it's a subtle form of an individual, but not separate self. And it is that individuality that seems to have that out-of-body experience. But being out of a body and in a body ultimately are not the ultimate truth there, which is what you're pointing to. But quite often it's an important stepping stage. If you can imagine that everyone believes they're a separate being, that they are this body, and then the very first experience they're going to have upon the physical death of the body is looking at the body from outside of it going, wow, I thought that was me. That's going to really radically alter your perception, even if you still haven't really clearly looked at what that me is that's saying that. It's going to be different, isn't it? So hope that helps. Sister Moon 108 says, Helen, so pleased with how you took each question seriously and dived deep with your answers. I learned so much. I appreciate your reply to my query. Yes, the letting go practice is available any moment, and the prompt to practice it arises quickly when there is mental suffering. Very good. Throughout the day. Perhaps I understand the directive. The more I can let go of more and more fundamental clingings, such as a sense of I, the clearer the path for wisdom to blaze forth. Wisdom, the elimination of the illusion of the experience of duality, separateness, a core reality I, as a fundamental fact. Absolutely. I think your original question was about how to allow more wisdom and all of that to come through. And it's really just to stop sustaining the illusion. The moment we stop sustaining the illusion, all that remains is truth. And that truth can burst forth as love, compassion, wisdom, understanding first. Perhaps one of the ways it will come, insight, epiphany, understanding, which is what we're calling wisdom here, isn't it? So the more I'm willing to question all of my assumptions and everything I've taken to be true, the faster that wisdom can burst through. And that's what happened for me. The fundamental clinging, as you've said here, is to this idea that I know what I am. I am this separate being that is on a journey to awakening. That's the fundamental assumption that we're all desperately clinging to, because I so much want awakening. I have this loyalty to this idea that I'm not already the awakened state, which is a radical shift in how I see myself. No longer something traveling towards awakening, but now something already that, always being that. So absolutely, your understanding is perfect there. Wisdom will naturally burst forth. Just like when you open the curtains in your room, the light comes in. You don't have to do anything to make the light come in. It was already there. You just have to kind of stop obscuring it with these ideas that we're holding on to. The moment you open that up, I'm willing to see if this is actually what is true about me, it will immediately start to come forth or through the body mind as wisdom. And that very fundamental illusion, as you said here, of duality, separateness, the core reality, I, as an object, as a fundamental fact. So yeah, very, very good. Ahmed says, can you explain how the phenomenal world is comprised of the self, capital S? I am aware that I am the witnessing of the phenomenon, but I still don't understand how it is that the phenomenal world is made up of consciousness. My mind is having a hard time understanding this. Any insight would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for all the wisdom you are sharing in these challenging times we live in. So So you've seen that you are witnessing the phenomena. You are the witnessing, not the phenomena. Okay. And that's fundamental to see that, isn't it? And that's life-changing in itself. But you're saying I can't understand how to make the next leap of a recognition, which is that all of this phenomenal world is made of consciousness too. So your mind is going to struggle with this because it's still having to use an assumption to get to this point. So the assumption that's now getting in your way now is a different one than it was before. So now I've seen that I am witnessing all of this. I am the witnessing consciousness that is watching all of this phenomenal world. And now there is one assumption which we all have as human beings that is now getting in the way, that's ready to be questioned now for you to make this next leap. And it took me a while to get this too. So it's nothing going wrong within you. Until we really start to be troubled by an assumption, we won't even know it's there, you know. So the assumption here now is that I am different to, I, the witnessing consciousness, I'm different to the phenomena that I am observing, witnessing. So with that idea in place, that the one seeing, the witnessing, is different to what is witnessed. That the formless, insubstantial witness of conscious witness, in noumenon self, whatever we're calling it, is different to and separate from what is being witnessed, is a fundamental assumption now that needs to be questioned. So the idea that the unmanifest self, the intelligent consciousness, is different to what has arisen out of it, seemingly. So the phenomenal world is different to the consciousness that is recognizing the phenomenal world. So me here now, that's using this laptop and this iPad and microphone and everything, me, I'm different to the objects that are arising out of me, manifested out of me. So while I have the idea deeply believed in that what I'm perceiving is different to something other than what is perceiving, then my mind is going to find it incredibly hard to reconcile that, because they appear to be opposites. The witnessing consciousness that's witnessing all the phenomena is unmanifest, unchanging, unmoving, all of that. And the phenomenal world that seems to arise out of it, all of this, that what is being witnessed is moving, changing, growing, being born and dying, and all of that. And they seem about as far opposite as they can get, don't they? Two different things. One's formless, infinite, unchanging. Other's form, coming and going, changing, always moving and becoming and changing, all of that. So while we're sure they're two things, then we're going to have trouble here moving forward. And it's the assumption we all have, that when we don't recognize until it begins to trouble us, as I've said before. So I had to really question in myself, what if they're not actually two? What if the unmanifest and the manifest are the same thing, appearing two different ways? That I am so amazing that I can show up as this witnessing consciousness and all the things that I'm witnessing too. But there isn't actually a dividing line. There isn't form and formless, witnessing or witnessed. And there isn't really a dividing line in the middle of that. I had to really question that dividing line. Does it actually exist? Can there be anything witnessed without the witnessing? Is there anything to see without anyone to see it? And if not, can they really be two different things? Or said a different way, which is more helpful for me, if the phenomenal world arises out of the self, and there are actually two this is actually arisen out of the self, if I buy that idea that all this arose out of the self, it's going to foster a sense that they're different. But what if the arising never actually happened? What if the phenomena that I'm seeing with my eyes and hearing with my ears, these words even, are nothing other than the infinite consciousness appearing to be something else than the formlessness, appearing to be form, but not actually. If we break down any form at all under a microscope, a powerful enough microscope, and scientists have done this, proved that there is just nothing at all underneath it. The bottom line of every object that we could ever come across is empty consciousness, empty of form, full of potential. So question that. Are they really two? Can you have witnessed without witnessing? Can you have phenomena without that which is perceiving? Can you have a manifest world without the space, infinite space of consciousness in which it's appearing to be? And what if it's not actually what you think it is, this phenomenal world? What would that look like? And questioning that assumption is going to bring you to a clearer understanding. It's going to leave you wide open for reality to just become obvious. All of this is not at all what it looks like or feels like. It's a trick of the senses that makes it look like a phenomenal world. So again, have a go at that and see where you get to. Yeah, I think it's Guli. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Thanks, Helen, for your lovely satsang. I enjoy reading your books and satsangs because they are direct and simple. English is my second language. I'm not quite clear about your saying of being present and sense of presence. What do they exactly mean or point to? Just being aware? Thank you and Merry Christmas. Yeah, awareness. I use all these words interchangeably. Noumenon, self with a capital S, awareness, consciousness, presence. We could also say the word I, what I really am. We could say silence, stillness. We could say this moment. They're all words for the same fundamental ground of our being, that part of us that isn't anything that we can see and perceive. So awareness to me is the same as presence. They're just all these different words teachers use because somebody might identify more easily with the word awareness than the word silence, or vice versa. So yeah, when I say sense of presence or being present, it's really just referring to the awareness that is always here. Awareness never leaves, not even in deep sleep. There's nothing at all for it to see in deep sleep, but it's still here. So I hope that helps, and Merry Christmas to you too. Thank you. DJ Jimmy, D Jimmy, sorry. How could you focus on awareness when awareness is nothing? I try it and it seems impossible. So here we can say that you said correctly here, awareness is nothing. So awareness is not a thing. So we can't focus on it like we would a thing. So normally, if we have a thing, we look at it. So here's a thing, my hand, I'm looking at it. I could look at the picture on the wall behind, it's a thing. I could look at a thing inside my own consciousness like a thought. A thought arises and I look at it. Not with physical eyes then, is it? But I'm still looking at something. My attention, my focus goes to one point in time and space. Either something in the room I'm sitting in, something happening inside my body, an itch or a sensation, something happening inside my head. My attention goes to that place, one particular place, to an emotional feeling. My attention might go to my skin if it was to get hot or cold or all of that. But focusing on awareness requires us to shift our way that we focus, not to a particular place, but more to an empty spaciousness in which the places are happening. So when I have a thought, I can notice that thought going through my mind. And then I can zoom out. We've been using this concept before of zooming in and out. I zoom in to look at a thought, or I zoom in to look at the sofa that's in the room here. I zoom in to look at my hand. And then I can also zoom out and notice the space in which that object is appearing. So the thought passing through my mind can help me zoom out to recognize the space in which the thought arises and disappears in. The presence of my physical body can help me recognize, zoom out, that there is, here I'm zoomed into my body. I can also zoom out and recognize there's a spaciousness, an empty space of awareness around my body. So we're just going to call it zooming out. It helped me to really recognize there's two ways I can pay attention. I can pay attention to something in a particular location, here, there, inside, outside. Those are kind of locations, aren't they? Or I can also pay attention to something that isn't a thing. I'm so glad you've asked this, because it's not obvious at first, is it, how to pay attention to something that isn't a thing. The easiest way is to, first of all, notice an object appearing inside that nothingness, that awareness, a thought, a sensation, a body, an object, a piece of furniture. And then allowing the object to contrast with the spaciousness in which it appears. And that's why the previous question, we use all these different names: noumenon, silence, stillness, awareness, nothingness, emptiness, field. It has infinite names, of course. But when I hear the words, the sound of this word, it helps me contrast against the silence that suddenly seems more obvious when the sound of the word disappears. So the moment I say word, as soon as that sound finishes, there's a kind of much more obvious silence in the background. Silence isn't a thing, but it's more and more clearer by comparison, by contrast. So moving my hand across like this and back again helps me to recognize there's a space that isn't moving, which I'm moving my hand through. Can you get a sense of it? So how to focus on something that's not a thing? Use the thingness to help you, and zoom out, zooming into a thing, zooming out to the space in which the thing is happening. And that spaciousness is nothing, no thing, emptiness, consciousness. Have a go and see how you get on, and let me know. Excuse me. Christina says, dear Helen, thank you for your support for awakening. It's so appreciated. My questions. Okay, so there's 3 questions here. I don't have time to answer them all. I'll just pick one. If you want to send the other ones in next month, please do. Let's go with question 2. All answers are within. What to do to receive the answer? The first question is a big one. Question 1 is, how do one love oneself? I think that is the missing piece in being loved, isn't it? What to do and what really is love. Question 2, all answers are within. And what to do to receive the answer. 3, is awareness maybe the same as our subconscious within that notice everything? Thanks. Let's go with question 2. All answers are within. What to do to receive the answer? Or what can stop you from getting the answer that you want? If I really want to know something, like we've just been talking about this last assumption of all, that the phenomenal world is different to, separate from the unmanifest self-awareness. If I really want the answer to that experientially, what can stop me? And looking at what you think can stop you. What can stop you getting any answer that you want? And again, if we're thinking here as a separate, limited being, then I'm just trying to figure this thing out, and there's no way I can get the answer. The great sages have figured out a way to get the answer that I haven't got yet. But can anything stop you from getting any answer that you want if you are all of this and the source of it all? If the phenomenal world is your imagination, your beautiful dream, your three-dimensional imagination, real-time, constantly evolving, moving, imaginary dream, then what can stop you from getting the answer? If you're a separate, limited being and you ask this question, what really am I? Where am I? Anything that you could want to know ever, is it really separate to you, the answer? Fundamental that. If it's something I'm trying to get from out there in, then a lot of things can go wrong in that process. But if I am already the infinite self, aren't I already the answers that I'm seeking? And isn't there really just one mind, consciousness, thinking through all of these brains and having all these experiences? The infinite self having all these human experiences where it has however many billion human brains it's got now, always increasing. Is there really lots of separate minds, or is it just one mind, a database of consciousness that you can download and upload to at any point? How can you have limited access to anything, to any knowledge like that? What do you think is in the way? What could stop you? And anything that you think you could not have an answer to is really because of the sense you're limited here. You're small, you're limited, and the answer you want is out there, separate to you. And that really isn't true. Is there anything that you cannot have access to like that? And you can say, well, I don't have access to the thoughts and the memories and the dreams of the next being sitting across the room from me. Well, you do in that body mind. You don't here, but you do in that body mind. And what can stop you from downloading whatever you want, having whatever experience you want from the database, every answer that you want, except the idea that something can stop you, that you are limited by something? Can you see how pervasive that idea is even here, that I am a limited being? And what happens when that goes? Very exciting. Okay, last but not least, SK says, hello, Helen. Thank you so much for your teachings. I'd like a deeper understanding about mass consciousness. How does the collective affect my life? And how do I affect the collective? I create my reality, correct? Is mass consciousness my co-creator? And if a situation pops up in society, do I contemplate it if it is not to my liking? If I say nothing, is that given my consent that it can stay? I'd like to have more information about mass consciousness. Thank you so very much. Well, I would start by destroying these ideas of mass consciousness and my consciousness, that there are two different things. What if you are mass consciousness thinking itself to be a separate being? What if that's happening all over the planet right now? The infinite being is thinking that it is a limited separate being only appearing in one place. That which is everywhere all the time and could never be separate is imagining itself to be separate, and then creates these artificial categories of me and the one consciousness, me here trying to merge into the one consciousness. Even this co-creator idea, the co means two. It comes from two, doesn't it? Co-creator, that would involve two things. So whether you think you're thinking about something that's only your personal thing here, or whether you recognize the thought I that goes through this brain is really the one being that's everywhere thinking about itself. Or we could say it's really thinking about itself and all the brains that it has all the time, having all the experiences it can have as a sentient and seemingly insentient forms. Then is there really a co in this at all? When I want something to change in the world, do I have any power to affect that? Well, if I realize what I really am, I am that world that I'm thinking about. I am that situation I'm thinking about. I don't have any limits in that way. I'm not limited. Co-creator, but even more immediate than co-creator. The one thinking about the situation is the same as the situation and everyone involved. Then that kind of hints at the power you do really have to make a difference in this. And if you contemplate, if I look at something that's happening that I don't like, and I contemplate the root idea behind it, yes, it's got to have an effect. It's got to have an effect. So what happens in your understanding when this idea of me, my separateness, and this idea of mass consciousness are seen to be synonyms, just the one being, thinking about itself two different ways, that I am this separate being here, and then there's the rest of the world out there. Not even co-creator, just creator. And it's thinking about itself everywhere, all the time, all the time. And whatever thought form, whatever ideas are most popularly subscribed to, that's what the majority experience. But it only takes one being, one individual expression, I should say, recognizing the truth like we're saying right now, to send a shockwave out, a ripple effect through all of this mass consciousness. You are mass consciousness. You are mass consciousness. It's not separate to you. You are mass consciousness confused about itself, thinking itself to be something small and limited, and then wondering how it interacts with mass consciousness. So if you can get that, that's fundamental, fundamental. Don't struggle with what I've just said. Just want to lightly, curiously, I want to get that. And I'm just going to go and relax and have a cup of tea. I'm not going to struggle over it. What is it like to understand I am mass consciousness already? Without the word mass, because mass involves many, doesn't it? Many. Can you see even that? A collection, the sum total of all its parts. What if even that is untrue? When one individual seems to have a breakthrough in one point, one being somewhere has an aha moment, somewhere in some country in time and space. Oh, that's what I really am. Is that one individual having an awakening experience or a deeper understanding? Or is the mass consciousness recognizing itself everywhere? Interesting to think about, isn't it? So again, I hope that gives you something to work with and to focus on. And again, if you need more guidance on that, do let me know. So a lot of questions there, and it's been a lot of fun. So if you have any thing you want to share for January, stick it as a comment under here. At the end of this month, I'll come back to this video and go through the whatever's being put on there, and we'll have a deeper discussion, further discussion. I want to also take this opportunity to thank you all for your support over this previous year. The channel has grown massively, and I don't have time to reply to every comment, but I do try to read every comment. I tend to get through most of them, especially the ones under these Ask Me Anything videos. And you are, it's not teacher and student here, you are me. So your input is just as valuable. So have a wonderful, happy and peaceful new year. And I hope that this year brings everything that you want. And what could stop that? Whether that's a profound awakening, so be it. Thank you. Namaste.